Negotiation is anytime I want or I need is in your head. So when you want your son or daughter to go to bed, it's a negotiation. Trying to deal with your neighbor about their dog barking or about some issue you have with the trash or whatever, you're in a negotiation. What we say is that I want you to go do low stakes practice before you go do high stakes practice, because you will fall to the level of your training. So the idea here is, can you negotiate to get an extra shot of espresso? Can you negotiate to get a better table in the restaurant? Can you negotiate to get the valet to park your car in front of the casino instead of in the parking lot? I'll give you an example. I was at JP Morgan Chase. I needed to get to the producer of a event I was at. Everything's locked down there. It's like kind of like being in the casino, but even tighter. I walk up to the security guard. Those security guards typically get treated like receptionists at the front desk. And I said to the security guard, "You look important." That's a label. "You look important." Well, the guy stood up. He was like, "Oh my God, someone thinks I look important." What did I do? I said, "How hard would it be for you to get me to this guy, Chris, who I needed to get to, who's the producer?" He said, "Not hard at all. Hold on." He opened the door and walked me over to Chris. Like, no friction.
All right, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the 1% Podcast. I'm your host, Vin End.
And I'm Shane.
And today we're joined for a part 2 by my man, JBS, John B. Smith. Welcome to the show again.
Thanks for having me back.
Of course, man, we are so excited. Guys, gals, and all of you listeners out there, we have one hell of an episode for you today. John is going to come in here today with the heat. We're going to be talking all things, his new book that he's got, his master negotiation skills, how you can become a master negotiator too. He's going to talk about this really cool AI chatbot thing that he's got going on. I still don't fully get it, but man, it's going to be cool, and maybe I'll understand after today's show. He also has such a phenomenal wealth of knowledge. Now, I get to be the psychology nerd, but he's the guy that actually takes the science and makes it applicable. So John is going to be coming in here with some of the greatest skills that you didn't even know you needed. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're anyone who's in sales, negotiation, or just wants anything, even maybe to win a fight with your wife for once, you have to listen to what this man has to say. Today is going to be a jam-packed episode, and you are about to experience it. So let's get into it. All right, John, it is great to have you back. So why don't we go into it, my man? We have you back on the show for a very specific reason. I was super excited. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about what you got going on?
Yeah, so I'm super excited. Glad to be back. Happy that you guys are welcoming me, Ben and Shane. I have a book coming out January 13th, Fight Less, Win More. It is the missing manual for Never Split the Difference. And it's a practical guide. How do you actually field these skills? Because we found that generally, if I go talk about the tactical empathy skills, the one question I get is, how do I actually get better at these skills?
I'm so glad I never split the difference then. So I could actually do this the right way as opposed to all the millions of people that have not. But with that being said,
I didn't say I was discouraging people from buying Never Split the Difference.
You can't, but I can. No, just kidding. So with that being said, though, it is a very fascinating book. I actually am really excited for Never Split the Difference. But what you're writing about, what you're talking about is extremely important, right? Because you're teaching people the fundamentals. And guys, for those of you that might have missed it, in the last episode, we had John on. John is a very distinguished EOS implementer. He helps entrepreneurs build their companies, scale them up, get them ready for sales. He is also right-hand man. I think that's the proper terminology, right? With Chris Voss. He's seen a lot of stuff. He's helped with a lot of stuff, part of the Black Swan group. And he's very knowledgeable on all of these things. So him writing this book is definitely going to be that missing link. He is not shooting clout. He's not blowing it up to be something it's not. He's genuinely been doing the work. And I anticipate this is not only going to be a phenomenal episode, but an amazing book. So John, can we get a little bit into this? You said it's kind of the missing handbook, right? What does that actually mean? Why do you think people struggle to learn how to implement some of the things in such an amazing book like Never Split the Difference?
Well, the issue is learning these skills is like learning a new language. So you need to do immersion, and you have to be willing to do low stakes practice and get it wrong. And when learning is uncomfortable. So people, I don't know if you've ever tried to learn a second language, but when they teach it in high school, you can write it down, but actually speaking it is hard. So the best way to do it is through immersion. And one of the things for me on the Black Swan team is I spent the last 10 years learning the skills. I am the only person on the team who is not a hostage negotiator, who's one of the coaches. And so I'm actually one of you. I'm just a regular person who chose to go learn how to use these skills. And grateful for Chris's mentorship, friendship, and coaching.
John's actually undercover, guys. His name is John Smith. So he is not one of us. He's trying with that name, though.
Well, they call it a funny name. That's my funny name. So
I went to a Chris Boss when he was introducing the whiskey mastermind out in Las Vegas. So I got to shake his hand and meet him, and just that group alone is absolutely phenomenal. It's I think for anybody who is looking to scale their skills up, being in that community, the Black Swan community, you definitely have my vouch for them. And if you like good whiskey too, it's kind of a win-win right there. Now, I remember last time for the EOS model, and it's kind of the uncomfortability route here where you're talking about actually implementing these changes. It's really hard to teach an old dog new tricks, especially when they're so adjusted into certain ways. This type of book, by me reading it, how can I actually put it to fruition?
So the book itself is broken up into chapters along individual Black Swan skills. So for example, our foundational tools are what we call the core four. Labels is one chapter, mirrors is another chapter, dynamic silence is a third chapter, summary is a fourth chapter. And the way the chapters are written, it's written specifically like, here's an example of a story where we actually use the skills. Here's a description of how the skills work. Here's some suggestions about how you can actually go do low stakes practice. And then we actually even provide I'm a pilot, so I call it a logbook that you can go out in the world and every day log your practice that you do. Because what we find is people aren't willing to do the low stakes practice. And if you don't own, the skills are depreciable. You do not own the skills unless you use the skills. I've made it into a game. I try it in all different sorts of environments, and the book is written in such a way that if you just wanted to reread or relearn a particular skill, like I wanted to really dig deep on summary the other day, I just went and read the summary chapter. I was like, wow, okay. Now I'm going to go field that tomorrow and try it again. So that's the way it's written. It's just got 19 chapters, and it's specifically written so you could take an individual chapter and then go field the chapter. Go take it in the field with you.
Yeah, it's essentially a playbook right there. My first
it's a playbook. You could call it a playbook. It's the idea is you got to learn the individual skills. We call it shu-ha-ri. So you have to first learn the skills as designed. Then you have to you can adjust them slightly for your own purpose. And then ultimately in Ri, you can actually completely just not think about it. It becomes subconscious. You get to your subconscious processes 20 million bits of information per second, while your conscious processes 40 bits per second. So imagine if it's in your subconscious, you all of a sudden get to use it and it comes out of your mouth. And it sounds conversational, because it has to sound conversational. If it sounds like you're coached, you're dead in the water.
I'm curious. As a therapist, we are taught about silence pretty well. How it's so powerful to get people to get uncomfortable enough to say things that they maybe normally wouldn't say. And there's obviously a few different ways and dynamics to use silence, but I'm very curious about kind of some of the tactics or some of the thoughts. I don't want to pull too much out of your book, and I'm sure you don't want to divulge too much before it comes out, right? Or there's nothing to get, but I'm curious, can you answer a little bit about, your take on how silence is really powerful in everyday conversation, just, I don't know, business, anything really?
Being able to be silent is a discipline. So one of the things in that chapter is just talking about the discipline of why am I talking? And if we drop a skill like a label or a mirror, we want to drop that label or mirror. And if it was a label, it's like 7 to 10 words. And if it's a mirror, it's like 3 to 5 words. And then we want to just drop silence. And most people are, if you're not trained, you're not disciplined around it, you'll drop a label and then you'll try to explain your label with and, or, because, but. And we don't want you to do that. We just want you to drop the label and see how people respond. And as long as it doesn't appear that you offended that person by saying your label, we basically say, let that label soak in, use dynamic silence, and the person will respond. So it's a discipline, though. The interesting thing is being in the discipline, and you're not always completely disciplined about it. Sometimes you walk in and you just want to get your point across so much that you can't help but just keep talking.
I'm curious on the business element here, especially because you're teaching skill sets here. Is there any sort of business implementation for follow-up? Are you planning on doing like a coaching business, a one-on-one? What did you think about this chapter? Or is it just going to be joining the actual group itself? What's the whole process here for creating this book besides just the regular helping people improve?
Yeah, so from a business perspective, and you know me as an EOS implementer, I think about things from a business perspective. So I have an AI agent that's going to be put in Google Chrome plugin. So you can buy the agent. I've used it 400 times successfully to do negotiations. So what we find is it's difficult to do negotiation prep. And the AI large language models will give you responses that even your brain won't give it to you because of you have confirmation bias. You're like, I can't possibly say that. And that's the thing you should be saying. So there's an AI agent. There will be a speaking tour. There will be like 8-week courses. There will be in-person courses. You know, the really interesting thing, what I'm trying to do, Tony Robbins has a deal with Paul Tudor Jones. I'm trying to actually be negotiator of record with a few private equity firms. So I do have one that I've been working with and helping them with their negotiations. I think that my background fits nicely with that, and that's part of the strategy that Chris has a few clients like that, and I'd like to do the same.
You're kind of speaking my language here, and that's I'm so glad that you said that too, especially you're implementing here with the direction that we're going as far as the times are concerned. I want to go back to the specifics of this agent. I'm curious on how it's going to be presented, if you're going to be selling it on Amazon or if you're going to be on Shopify or wherever the case may be. How are you going to successfully present this AI agent saying, this is somebody who's going to guide you through it. This is somebody that you can utilize and ask questions, because I'm assuming this is going to be that coach that they're getting with this book.
Yeah, what we find is that we're very good at doing we have a premium offering. The premium offering works really well, but the total addressable market for negotiation is like any human who's ambitious and wants or needs something. If I want or I need is in your head, you are in a negotiation. So what this agent, it's actually an orchestrated agent. So it's a series of GPTs that I put together that orchestrates. And what I'd like it to do is be able to operate independently inside of a Google Chrome plugin. So I was talking, Shane, you'll know, I was talking to Sam Parr in New York City. He's like, put the agent into a Google Chrome plugin. It's the easiest way to get distribution. Our hope is that we don't have to have customer service to go with it. It's an independent Google Chrome plugin, and it basically starts with what's the point of view of your counterpart. So I can actually build a GPT that figures out what their point of view is. We have something called a negotiation one sheet. So it will literally lay out one sheet of a negotiation and what you should think about, like what you'd put in your lap when you go into the negotiation. You could put it into a battle card if you think about a sales battle card. And then some people have said, hey, I want to see what a simulation of that negotiation looks like with that specific person. So we built a sim that actually shows what the negotiation might look like, starting with 15 volleys. So you just get a sense for what you're walking in.
I need to go into more detail. First off, that Google Chrome plugin is absolutely brilliant. I'm reading that, wrote that down because I think that is absolutely brilliant, especially from just a standard actual URL. Having it there as saved, as bookmarked, as something that you can just easily tap and it pops up as a plugin. Amazing. I love that idea. when I hear the word negotiations, I immediately go to, just because it's not me, so I'm trying to, exasperate this. I immediately go into threats, right? Or I think of high stakes situations. I'm assuming this is for any type of negotiations, sales. I am trying to negotiate with my wife on picking a place to eat. Can we elaborate on how expansive this trained AI agent actually is?
So let's go back and get to what a negotiation is by our definition. A negotiation by our definition is anytime I want or I need is in your head. So when you want your son or daughter to go to bed, it's a negotiation. I want or I need them to go to bed. Okay. Most basic. Trying to deal with your neighbor about their dog barking or about some issue you have with the trash or whatever, you're in a negotiation. As all the way to, Shane, you're selling your business and we're dealing with the investment bankers and we're dealing with the financiers, like the traditional business stuff you would think about. But what we say is that I want you to go do low stakes practice before you go do high stakes practice, because you will fall to the level of your training. So the idea here is, can you negotiate to get an extra shot of espresso? Can you negotiate to get a better table in the restaurant? Can you negotiate to get the valet to park your car in front of the casino instead of in the parking lot? Whatever those things are. So we say start low stakes. Like, I'll give you an example. I was at JP Morgan Chase. I needed to get to the producer of a event I was at. Actually, Jamie Dimon was speaking after me. I needed to get the producer. Everything's locked down there. It's like kind of like being in the casino, but even tighter. And I walk up to the security guard, and everyone in those security guards typically get treated like, they think they're the receptionist at the front desk. So I walk up to the security guard. I literally didn't think about this, but I was kind of stressed out. I needed to get something fixed. And I said to the security guard, "You look important." That's a label. "You look important." Well, the guy stood up, he was like, "Oh my God, someone thinks I look important." And what did I do? I said, "How hard would it be for you to get me to Chris? This guy, Chris, who I needed to get to, who's the producer." He said, "Not hard at all. Hold on." He opened the door and he walked me over to Chris. Like, no friction, right? No friction. Now, Voss has used that at a casino with a security guard. And he's like, "That's amazing," because everyone else treats them like they're, I don't know, 411, something like that, And that's just an example. I removed myself as a threat. I didn't show up as a threat. I told him, I would say, sort of like from Pretty Woman, you look handsome, very powerful. Not me, her, right? So
Love it.
That's what I was
crazy.
about to ask. Have you ever considered being a dating coach? I think mine was absolutely phenomenal. So, and I love what you mentioned as far as and this goes with all of AI in general. It's only as good as you know how to actually use it, and especially for the negotiation tactics too. So I'm glad I asked that question, and thank you for that wonderful analogy there. I'm actually going to steal that. You look important for everything.
I just had a great idea. You could walk into a restaurant, walk up to the maitre d' and say, "You look like you run the place."
I do all the time. Like if you go into a doctor's office and everyone treats the personal care coordinator terribly, I'm like, "You look like you make things happen here." And it's tone. Like, I'm using the tone. I'm pretty playful. That's an accommodator tone. I'm giving them some respect. And invariably, like, you skip the line. It's easier to, she's grumpy with the last person or the person in front of you, and you're just respecting them. So they're just human. Every human's dying to be heard.
Yeah, that's true. Everybody wants to feel connected. They want to feel understood.
And
it's a very intrinsic need, and it's also a desire for us to feel wanted. I'm sure there's, it's interesting, right? As you talk about this, I hear a lot of this, and it's funny because it plays very heavily into human need theory, right? So you walk up to a security guard who winds up feeling insignificant all day because people don't really care about his position, and he's just the dude in the black shirt. Chances are one of his human needs not being met is a sense of significance. So you're walking over to him and you're saying, hey, you look important. You just fed that guy's most underfed need. And now you're skipping to the front, not obviously because the label, the tactic, but there's something even deeper. It hits that phenomenal psychological piece that most people aren't even aware of, that they're missing things or that they want things. So I think this could even be taken another great step further to really say you're opening up people to touching their deepest untouched, unimportant, or sorry, unfed needs. And I love that.
It's all brain science, but I'm glad that we have the psychologist on the team so he can tell us how it actually works. I'm an applied guy. I'm just like, okay, this is amazing. Let's go use it and train. I was an athlete, played football in college, and this is just like everything else. You just have to train and you have to be committed.
It's so crazy too, because as I hear you saying it, I'm recognizing what's happening on a psychological standpoint. And I'm like, God, it's so freaking simple. How have we missed this, right? Because I understand the deeper psychology, but that's kind of the funny part is I get to nerd out about the psychology, but you're the guy bringing in the practical application, and that's why this is a really powerful thing. So everybody listening, you better be getting this book. It's already coming to my house, but you got to get your own.
For those that missed EOS, I don't know if we can segment to this, but I also felt like the last episode that we talked about for the EOS model, I remember jumping on with Jonathan and the team, and I just want to talk about this for those of you who don't know what EOS is. This is essentially an entire system breakdown. It's almost hitting the reset button and bringing it back down to basics and principles while also giving you hand-holding guidance on setting up your entire business properly and marketing it proficiently to actually get more customers in the door. Is that still one of your main focuses with EOS? Has things evolved? Have things changed with AI?
I have some really great GPTs that I built, which you and I could nerd out on. I have a GPT to run the core values speech, and you give it 5 core values, and it actually writes the speech for you at this point. And it was the homework that people wouldn't do. So I can get you, Shane, like 70% of the core value speech, and then have you and your team polish it up. So I'll give a story as an example inside the GPT. It won't be an exact story for your business, but the idea is it gives you all the direction. So all the hard thinking is done by the GPT. So it's there. It exists. I am still an EOS implementer. I think probably 2026. Vin, I don't know if I told you, we signed a deal with Penguin Random House in the UK. So they bought the rights for the UK and in the Commonwealth. So that was really, Shane, that was a unique deal. We used a hybrid publisher domestically, and then Chris's publisher from the UK at Penguin Random House for Never Split the Difference saw the book and said, I have to buy this. We didn't use the traditional channels. We closed the deal in 48 hours. So it's all about execution, my friend.
My man negotiated, and you know it.
I think that is absolutely incredible. There clearly was a deal on the table for 48 hours, but
he froze for you.
I think you and I need.
He froze for me,
yeah.
Oh, I'm frozen.
Waiting. I know he's back. He's probably skipping.
My ear still.
I think there'd be better reception in a warehouse.
Yeah, he maybe just has to set up
such a big space. All right,
there he is. Back. Are you back?
I guess I was able to hear and see you the entire time.
Okay, we lost you for a minute.
Yeah. Okay, John, you're gonna have to edit all that out. 3, 2. I think getting a deal done in 48 hours is absolutely unheard of. I think you and I are definitely going to have to talk offline. Are you still doing any sales coaching, or even, if people are getting ready to actually sell their business and negotiate for the business outside of just those private equity firms that you're looking to go into? Are you doing any one-offs?
I still do. I would call it negotiation coaching. But the advantage I have is I can do EOS if I said Shu Ha Re at a re level, and I can do Black Swan at a re level. Mm-hmm. So I understand the business and I understand the negotiation dynamics, and I've done 50 exits with my clients or liquidity events. So Well, I certainly do some coaching with my clients, that kind of coaching.
Let me ask you something personal then, because this kind of correlates with what you're currently doing, especially with the new book that's coming out. Where do you see yourself, humans, lead negotiators, if you're teaching this entire AI agent everything that you know? How are you still going to be relevant?
The AI agent merely sets up what the negotiation should be. The AI agent does not actually do the negotiation for you. So it's a negotiation prep tool. We're not having two agents negotiate against each other to try to bargain. So that would be the difference. Bargaining is like back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And our version of tactical empathy is so we see empathy as it's about them or about you, Shane, if I'm talking to you. If sympathy is about me, I continually make it about me. So I'm figuring out how to intuitively express what's going on for you, and humans, given what's going on with technology, et cetera, have not changed. Finn will tell you, we are still hardwired the same way. Right. So if you're dealing with a human, the AI agent is not going to go deliver the message. What the AI agent is going to do, I think of it as like an exoskeleton. I'm like, oh, it's like kind of like being like Terminator. Like you have the tools hanging on you that you wouldn't otherwise have, but you still have to be trained up to be able to execute, and you're still going to get triggered. So we have to accept the fact that you're going to be triggered, and you get to decide how you're going to respond or react. And react generally is not going to prove very effective, but Vin will tell you, we're going to react sometimes. So be kind to yourself.
Oh yeah. It's a big problem a lot of people have. They think that in training themselves, they'll never have another experience, when it's really about training yourself enough so that you can recognize when the experience is coming up and pivot quicker than you used to, or stop yourself from going too far into it. And that's really the power of continuing to just put in the work on it. I keep having this funny thought that one person on one side of the Zoom is going to have your chatbot, and the other person is going to have the chatbot, and they'll both be reading the scripts against one another and doing a negotiation.
But it doesn't really. We haven't figured out if you could do it like in an ear, like delivered directly to you, and then you speak it out of your mouth. That's what like a person on the TV. That's what like a TV news anchor would do. Like we found it. We even took those crazy glasses, Shane, where you could actually deliver it to the glasses and read it, but it doesn't sound authentic. So here's what happens. People can smell intent. If the intent doesn't feel legitimate, like we are hardwired to smell intent. My preference is train, use the agent, figure out, set yourself up for the negotiation, but then you have to go and be human. And there is no script to deliver that where I can say like, okay, well, here's exactly how the volleys are going to go. You're going to walk in and there's a bunch. It's called the Black Swan Group for a reason. There's a bunch of things we're going to go uncover we don't know about the counterparty. And you have to, my new personal brand is called Stay Curious, JBS, because my mantra is to constantly stay curious, because you never know what's coming out on the other side.
Vid and I talk a lot about human connection, and I thought that was very well said, human connection. And I feel that everything that was just mentioned in regards to the tools that is going to be given is exactly what they should be used for. There was a podcast that was done with Joe Rogan and Elon Musk, and he was talking about the future of cell phones and essentially what's going to be planned. And he was saying eventually exactly what Vin was
pause.
talking
Just
about.
start that over, because the ring is going to overshadow.
So there was a podcast with Joe Rogan and with Elon Musk, and they were talking about future of technology and phones and, the actual human lifestyle of what it's going to be in the next 5 to 6 years with robotics coming into place. And he says, I honestly see a future in 5 to 6 years where the agents are going to be talking to agents. But you have to understand, people desire human connection. So when you actually grow your internal self and you're bettering yourself, that's going to be the most desirable thing that you can. And utilizing these AI tools to the best way that you can to improve yourself. And I think that's exactly what you're doing here. And that's the exact message here.
100%. So the idea here is that, and we've been gone back and forth on the power of AI here. People are desperate for human connection. They're desperate to be heard. And this tool, Derek, who's my co-author on Fight Less, Win More and the head coach at Black Swan Group, he just wanted to make sure we weren't trying to like feed the negotiation to someone in real time. Then he felt like it was much more important that we prepare people for a negotiation, but then they have to be present. You just have to be present. Like, and part of one of the chapters in the book is all about listening. Seems like a simple concept. We should have learned that in kindergarten. I think lots of people, most of us, still need to learn how to listen better.
You know, it's a funny thing, right? So this is how, from a psychologist or psychotherapist perspective, most people struggle to listen and stay silent because they're so afraid that they're not going to get what they're looking for, right? They're afraid they're not going to get their needs met. They're afraid if they don't talk about what's important to them, you'll never know. You won't be curious. You won't care enough to ask. People are, I find, inherently afraid to be left out or potentially unrecognized or unseen or unheard, or just all these big fears that they're not going to just be getting something. And I know that fundamentally, if you could quell that, you can actually put more effort into the person in front of you, which will ultimately help you get more of what you want, right? And I think that's where people have it backwards, because they're so focused on getting what they want that they completely are willing to steamroll the other person. Now, I'm assuming that there's going to be some great stuff in your book that at least talks about some sort of a tactic around that. But in your professional opinion, negotiator to therapist here, how do you see it when you're trying to explain to someone to kind of put your own needs to the side, keep your own agenda or desires away, and really focus on that other person, which will ultimately help the very thing you're seeking to get? What's your take on that?
We say never be so certain about what you want that you wouldn't accept something better when it's offered. And if you walk in thinking you know what you want, you're only going to get the deal that you think you want. So that's where we start. And then part of the negotiation, the first piece is that you have to remove yourself as a threat, because you are a threat anytime you want or need something. And if you can remove yourself as a threat, people are much more, willing to speak their minds. So you can explain the brain science, Vin, but the idea is like, if people feel heard and cared for and thought about, like, I have people come to me and say, "Oh my God, I don't know anyone else who's able to listen the way you are. I want, it's like, it's something that people are just like, they just want to talk to me because of that." And then they make offers that you never thought were possible. One of the things that one of my colleagues, Joe Kim, says is that I generally order off menu. I don't even know what I'm going to get. Ordering off menu is getting the deal with Penguin Random House on a Monday night and not even knowing it was coming and being done by Wednesday. If I asked a traditional publisher, they said, well, first you have to have your literary agent, then you have to write the book proposal, then you have to write the book, or at least the first chapter, then we'll see if we can get you in advance. And you have to do it in the States first. And what we did was we did it completely different. We signed the deal with Chris's literary agent, Steve Ross, because we need one to work with Random House. We have a good relationship with him. So, but that was totally off menu. Like, we were just completely open-minded, and we weren't calling Nigel, who's in the UK, in London, and saying, you need to buy this book. I want you to buy this book. Nigel wasn't buying that book until Nigel decided he wanted to buy the book.
So is it truly just being able to listen to other people so that you can get the best of what they want, so you know how to give it to them? Or do you think that there's something else that has to be done there? Because I do find that if you do listen well enough, because people are so desiring to be heard, they'll often tell you what they're looking for. But to your point, because we're usually so in our ways, we don't even hear them. But I am curious, is there anything else in there, or do you think that simple process is the secret?
I mean, that's foundational, right? But then we have all these techniques in order to actually listen better and have people understand that they feel heard. So, for example, our summary starts with, so far you've told me, and I'm supposed to tell you 9 things that you've told me, right? So you may tell me that's right, that's right, that's right. The urge to correct, if my summary is wrong, you're going to tell me it's wrong. Now, I'm not telling you so far I heard. I'm saying so far you told me. Shane just told me. And then I could say, as a result, blah, 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 here's what's going to happen. But the idea is just by changing that a little bit, Shane all of a sudden feels heard. He says, that's right, that's right, that's right. No, I'm going to fix that because you weren't quite right on that particular issue. But there's a whole process to being heard. So like where I say it's foundational to listen, like it's early in the book, there are a series of tools that we have in place to improve your odds and to get, where you're saying people will tell you things, we call those black swans. People are going to tell you 3 to 7 things that they didn't even anticipate they would tell you because you're listening. And you just keep your mouth shut and let's keep talking. So
interesting. So I got a follow-up question for this, because I'm sure you've heard of this guy before. Jeremy Miner, NLPQ techniques, right? Have you heard of him, John?
I don't know him. I should probably, but I don't.
Well, so
I paid for his coaching, so I know him, and I would love to make the very different comparisons, but go ahead, Ben. I'll say mine after.
Yeah. Well, so I'm curious because Jeremy Miner's whole thing is NLPQ, which stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming Questions, which is basically getting people to their emotional core so that you can get them to have an experience internally so that they are compelled to make a decision on the thing you kind of ultimately want them to make a decision on, right? Because he's a sales coach. And so it's a very interesting way of phrasing things, because he's trying to teach you how to get people to these emotional places to make these decisions. And for you, you're also kind of getting people there, but I almost feel like you're doing it in a different way. Now, Shane has a little bit more knowledge on that. So Shane, why don't you go ahead and bring it in there? And I'm sure there'll be a question somewhere.
I actually thought you said that pretty well. I don't want to downplay Jeremy Miners, but when it transitions and correlates to sales, people have been through that process, which for years now, they understand it. And he was not the first one where he took this implementation from. So to carry on what Vin is talking about, Jonathan, he essentially sits through a call and it's like 30 to 45 minutes of discovery. So John, tell me about yourself. Tell me about your business. What about your goals? How do you plan on getting to your goals? Okay, so you can't see your goals. So what's the solution? You don't know the solution. I'm the solution. Okay, so now you see yourself getting to your goals with a solution. How does that make you feel? So he teaches you all those forms of discovery questions to get down to essentially you've now said everything that you need to say, right? And now your decision is based on emotions, right? Which is essentially time. Time's the most valuable commodity, or you're getting some form of ROI, which is either time or money. Obviously, you can tell I pay for Jeremy Miner. The problem is people are now used to that, and they are trained to be defensive and being quick overviews and essentially just giving you the shortest answers possible. And then if you're not strong enough and you're not used to controlling the actual conversation, the entire pitch goes out the window. So that's kind of where I was going with it, Ben. I don't know how you were able to read my mind because we are so opposite, but for today, that's how I wanted to bring in it too. How are you different? Because I've already written down a whole page of first off books that I need to buy, things that I need to start implementing, and then you and I need to schedule up a follow-up call for sure. But I would love to ask exactly what Vin is asking. How is that different? When we're talking about negotiating on a basic to advanced level, how is it different than just the forms of discovery all the way to objection handling?
We find that people are more likely to give you answers and be more open if you use a label versus a question. So a label to us is it seems like, it feels like, it looks like, it sounds like. Like I have an intuition, I'm going to label it. I'm going to say, it seems like, you're excited about your new warehouse. because you were showing us around earlier, Shane. But so we could use it, or we could use you. If it's you, it would be more personal. So it or you, it seems like, it sounds like, it looks like, it feels like. So we found if I ask you a question, we'd call those calibrated questions, what or how questions. You sometimes, like, I start still seeming like a threat sometimes. Because like, you're like, I don't know how much information I want to give him because he's going to use that against me when he puts his SOW together, blah, 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 blah. So people are more open if we found them to be more open, even from 2 years ago, by using these labels more actively. The other thing I do is, like, we don't really use yes momentum. Like, so yes momentum is what you might experience if you deal with the F&I person at the car dealership. What happens if your car breaks down and you don't have this? You're going to have to pay $1,000. You know, we use no-oriented questions because people are so sick of, they're used to answering no to a yes-oriented question. So, for example, I would say, you know, if I texted you, Shane, we'd say, is now a bad time to talk? If it's a bad time to talk, you're going to tell me, yes, it's a bad time to talk. If it's not, you're going to say no. So that is a simple example of a no-oriented question, but people are like yes addicted. And then, like you're saying, Shane, people are used to that program and they're used to just saying no. Or they're used to saying like, oh God, I'm in procurement. I've been asked this question 1,000 times. As opposed to saying, wow, I was dealing with someone and they sent me something. Who sent me something? Oh, someone sent me a document and looked like it was written by a lawyer. I was doing a mortgage. And I said, oh, it looks like this document was written by a lawyer. So that's a label. I say, you know, how hard would it be for you just to tell me the 3 things you need so we can get the deal done? Right? Not hard at all. And I don't have to then deal with the legal language, and she's laughing on her end going like, yeah, I have to deal with these lawyers all the time because the Fed is involved or what have you.
I love this, man, because again, it's just feeding my nerd. Like, it plays on the psyche that people, we do not like to appear unreasonable in other people's eyes. So when you're asking no questions, it actually puts them in a higher likelihood that if they don't answer it the right way, that they appear unreasonable, right? Like, to your simple no question, like, is now not a good time to talk? If they say like something disproportionate, they're going to be extremely unreasonable. So they either answer yes, or it even hits them in a way where if they're lying, like, because it's not a bad time to talk and they say no, then they're like, oh wait, now they're going to question their no. They're going to be like, am I unreasonable right now? Like, I could say it's not a bad time to talk, but I could say it is if I don't want to talk to them. And now you got them questioning themselves, which is really, oh man, I love this. I want to like sit down with you and go through everything. But
the book that's why we wrote the book, because it's so hard to go through it with everyone. And then once we have the book out there, you know, we can do book clubs and we can do speaking engagements and we can do live events and all these different things. We can do Ask Me Anything or all those sorts of things that are out there.
I'm so excited for that. Man, Tony Robbins has the events where you go there and you say yes, your event's going to be say no. I can't wait.
We would definitely not be say, if the event was say yes, Chris would kick me off the team. So it would have to be say no.
I got a little bit of a question here. I don't know if this is if there's intent in your book with this, but I'm curious just from my own standpoint, because a lot of this can really be heavily applied to sales. We have a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners that listen to this podcast, as you know, and I'm curious, how can you use some of the powers of negotiation or some of the things that are written in your book to potentially revive, if it's possible, to revive a failed sale or a failed negotiation where maybe somebody was super on the fence and they're like, yeah, I want it. And then they said, you know what, actually I don't. They turn around and they just don't sign up, they ghost you, whatever the case may be. Is there a case for the things that you teach to revive lost negotiations or lost opportunities?
So we have a very simple question. I asked the question this morning. So Shane, I was in my level 10 meeting this morning. We were reviewing the sales funnel. I just sent a simple email, less than 7 words. Have you given up on EOS? I got a response in 30 seconds. Nope, I didn't give up. It got lost in the sauce, and we booked a meeting.
Can we not write all these things down? Ben, how are you not writing these down? I need another page crying out loud over here. I need to go back because I need to give props to actually where they're given. I did make a change, and it was about 6 months ago, and I do that in my sales tactics for my prospectors. Is now a bad time to talk? It throws them off guard because they're immediately not into it. So I just wanted to give the props where they were actually given, and thank you for that as well. All right, so I don't want to transition this into like sales coaching and negotiations because there's clearly so much that essentially you've already given. But I have one very interesting question that I don't know if you've been asked before, at least probably not lately. What drives you? I'm very curious on like why you keep on pushing and striving. Is it what is it? Because clearly you're very successful. You're with an amazing group and you have great aspirations. I'm very curious on what drives you.
So I want freedom and adventure, right? So like my driving goal is freedom. I have a scorecard. It's called Freedom Squared. What does Freedom Squared look like? One of the elements that EOS does not allow me to do is I don't have freedom over location. Because if I'm with an EOS client, like I don't really love doing virtual, and because I think EOS should be done in person. I think just the human dynamics works better. And then I'm stuck in a room for 8 hours. So if I wanted to move to Europe or, be a digital nomad or whatever, this allows me to do it. And I love to learn. I want to get better every day. Like people are willing to pay for transformation and I need transformation too. And like I got to the point where I'm at 99% capable at EOS. I mean, sometimes something shows up, but in general, my heart does. I could look at my heart rate. It's like people are screaming and yelling and it doesn't even move. So I'm like, all right, how am I going to transform, continue to get better? The Delta Force has a saying, selection begins daily, assessment is ongoing. That's what I'm trying to do. Just get better every day.
John, can you, we're coming up towards the end here, but I'm super curious. We probably asked you this a while back. Maybe we didn't on the first pod, but I'd love to ask you here too is in this season of your life, all the things that you've learned, done, accomplished, all the amazing people that you've met, which I know have been vast. What's one piece of advice that you feel like everybody should know? What's one thing that maybe been given to you that you'd like to pass on to the audience?
Well, a couple things, I guess. One is my grandfather always said, your word is not for sale. So I always think, it goes back to core values, about doing the right thing. But that may sound cliche. So the other thing for me is to become an expert. Become an expert at something, because the way that we're educating people in school doesn't actually translate to the kind of lifestyle that you're looking for, or a lot of people are looking for. So, Shane asked me about why I do this, and I'm like, I just want to be great every day and great at something. The fact that I'm a, solutions architect that can build an AI tool to go do negotiations, and he's going to go create some, Google Chrome plugin now, but like go do something great. Go become an expert. Don't be a generalist. People are going to pay for that expertise at this point. I think if I was younger, that's what I would want people to do. I always say I have survival skills. I got taught survival skills. So regardless of what happens, I'll just go figure out how to make it work.
Aristotle says we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. And I believe that's the essence of greatness. You have to become greatness for there to be an exhibition of it. It is something that you have to practice and train and do daily. So I absolutely love your dedication to that, John. And I feel extremely blessed and fortunate to even be able to call you a friend just because of the quality of man that you are. So thank you so freaking much for being here. Before we hop off, can you please tell people how can they get your book? Where can they find you? Websites, links, all that stuff. Please plug your stuff in shamelessly. Tell people how to get more into your ecosystem.
So the book is called Fight Less, Win More. You can find it on Amazon. My website is Stay Curious, and then it's JBS. So my name is Jonathan B. Smith, JBS, Juliet Bravo Sierra. JLo can be called 3-letter acronym. I think I should be too. I'm just JBS. So it's staycuriousjbs.com. There it is.
John is hilariously also has the most normal government name ever. You have the John Smith, John Doe, Jane Smith, Jane Doe.
And I'm on the board of the Spy Museum. Riddle me that.
Exactly.
Seriously,
That's right.
guys,
We'll need a third episode for that one.
if you want to grow your actual skill set, even know the basics of that bottom one's my wife's. All right, it was already in the cart. All right. Please purchase this book. I can't wait to break this AI agent with floods of different questions, and then I can reach out to Jonathan and I can become useful. What I'm great at. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, Jonathan, thank you again. Can we have you on in a couple more weeks? I love talking to you. I honestly feel like when you come to anything, to a podcast, to a meeting, if you're not learning anything or growing yourself or growing your brand or growing whatever the case may be, send me an email. I don't have time for this. And with you, it's worth every single minute. So I just want to say thank you.
Thanks, Shane. Appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Thanks, John. Guys,
Thanks,
there you
Ben.
have it. Another freaking phenomenal episode on the 1% podcast. John is a master. You just learned from him. Please, I think you should all go get his book if you haven't. Go check it out right now. I know Shane and I have it on the way, and we are both equally excited for it. Please remember, tune in for another episode of the 1% podcast. As always, I'm your host, Vin End.
And I'm Shane.
And we'll see you soon. That was John, everybody. Bye.
Bye, guys.